A merchant ship docks in Sicily. Within days, the crew is dead. Within weeks, half of Europe will follow. This is the story of humanity's darkest hour. The Black Death didn't just kill. It erased entire bloodlines, destroyed kingdoms, and shattered everything medieval people believed about God, medicine, and survival. Imagine watching black boils erupt across your skin. Imagine your children coughing blood. Imagine knowing that in 3 days you'll all be dead. This was reality. 75 to 200 million people perished. That's up to 60% of Europe's entire population. Gone. In just 7 years. Let that sink in for a moment. This wasn't just a disease, it was the apocalypse made flesh. And it started with something so small, so invisible, that no one could stop it. A bacterium. Before we witness the horror, you need to understand medieval Europe. Filthy, crowded, perfect for plague. Let me show you what hell on earth truly looked like. October 1347. 12 Genoese trading ships arrive in Messina, Sicily. The crew? Either dead or dying. Their cargo? Grain, spices, and death itself, riding on black rats. The authorities ordered the ships away immediately. Too late. The invisible killer had already jumped ship. Within 5 days, Messina was a city of screams. Yersinia pestis, that's the bacterium's name, carried by fleas on rats from Central Asia, it traveled the Silk Road. 8,000 miles of trade routes became highways of death. First came fever and chills. Then the buboes, swollen lymph nodes the size of apples, black and oozing. The pain was beyond description. Death followed in days. There were 3 forms. Bubonic, the most common. Pneumonic, spread person to person, killed in 2 days. Septicemic, turned flesh black. All were agony incarnate. Medieval doctors had no idea what caused it. They blamed bad air, God's wrath, planetary alignment, even the Jews, anything but the truth they couldn't see. By January 1348, the plague reached France. By summer, England. Cities fell like dominoes. And with each city, thousands upon thousands died screaming in their beds. Florence, Italy. Population, 120,000. By 1348's end, 50,000. Half the city, gone. Giovanni Boccaccio wrote, "The living barely suffice to bury the dead. Paris lost 50,000. Hamburg lost 60%. Bristol, England. So many died that records simply stopped. Scribes themselves were dead. No one left to write the horror. Villages were completely abandoned. Farms turned to wilderness. Crops rotted in fields. No one to harvest, no one to eat. Famine joined plague in this dance of death. Families locked themselves inside homes. They painted red crosses on doors. Lord have mercy. But mercy never came. The plague found them. It always did. Children watched parents die. Parents buried children in their gardens. The nuclear family unit, the cornerstone of medieval life, shattered into dust. The church promised salvation. Priests administered last rites. Then the priests started dying too, by thousands. Who would save the people when God's servants fell? Pope Clement VI locked himself in his palace, surrounded by fires that supposedly purified the air. He survived. Millions of his flock did not. Faith began to crack. People turned to extreme penance. The Flagellants whipped themselves bloody in public, believing pain would appease God's wrath. It only spread the plague further. Others turned to scapegoats. Jewish communities across Europe were accused of poisoning wells. The massacres that followed were genocide dressed as divine justice. In Strasbourg alone, 2,000 Jews were burned alive in 1349. Entire communities were erased. The plague killed millions. Human hatred killed thousands more. Medical ignorance fueled the terror. Doctors wore bird-like masks stuffed with herbs, believing they filtered bad air. They didn't. The plague spread through them too. Treatments ranged from useless to horrific. Bloodletting weakened patients further. Lancing buboes caused excruciating pain. Drinking mercury poisoned the dying. Some cures defied belief. Bathing in urine, swallowing crushed emeralds, sitting near open sewers. Desperate people will try anything. Nothing worked. Ever. The only thing that helped was isolation. Quarantine. Venice invented the word quarantena, 40 days of isolation for ships, but by then, it was everywhere. Bodies piled faster than they could be buried. Mass graves were dug. Lime was poured over corpses. The smell of death became the smell of the 1300s itself. In London, new cemeteries were consecrated for plague victims alone. Smithfield, East Smithfield. Archaeologists have found layers upon layers of skeletons there. Death moved so fast that proper burials became impossible. Bodies were thrown into rivers, left in streets. The rituals that honored the dead, gone, like everything else. Society collapsed. Trade stopped. Courts closed. Kings fled to countryside estates. The machinery of civilization ground to a halt as the plague consumed everything. King Edward III of England lost his daughter, Princess Joan, to plague in 1348. She was just 14, traveling to marry a Spanish prince. Death respected no crown. Labor shortages transformed Europe. So many workers dead, survivors could demand wages. Peasants gained power. The feudal system began its death throes. In England, the statute of laborers tried to freeze wages at pre-plague levels. It failed. You can't legislate against death. The world had changed forever. The Peasants' Revolt of 1381 had its roots in Black Death. Survivors realized their value. They had survived hell. They would no longer bow to anyone. Culture transformed too. Art became obsessed with death. Danse Macabre showed skeletons dancing with the living. Death as the great equalizer. Because it was. The plague didn't end in 1353. It came back. Again and again. 1361, 1369, 1374. Each outbreak killed thousands more. The wounds never healed. They just scarred over. London's Great Plague of 1665 was the same disease. Still killing. Still unstoppable. Yersinia pestis haunted Europe for 300 years after 1347. The Black Death killed more people than World War I and World War II combined. More than the Spanish flu. It remains the deadliest pandemic in human history. Personal accounts break your heart. Petrarch the poet lost his beloved Laura. He wrote, "Death has taken my love. Nothing remains but grief and memory." Agnolo di Tura from Siena wrote, "I buried my 5 children with my own hands." 5. Imagine that weight. That's not history. That's human suffering. Survivors suffered trauma we can barely imagine. Entire generations grew up surrounded by death. Childhood in the 1300s meant watching everyone you loved die. But here's something remarkable. Humanity survived, against impossible odds, through unimaginable horror. The species continued. We're here because they endured. Some historians argue the Black Death led to the Renaissance. With fewer people, resources became available as education spread. Innovation exploded. From death, rebirth, workers demanded wages. Women entered professions previously closed to them. The rigid medieval hierarchy cracked. Rights we take for granted today, born in plague's ashes. The plague forced medical advancement. Dissection became acceptable. Anatomy was studied. The seeds of scientific revolution were planted in mass graves. Public health systems emerged. Sanitation improved. Quarantine protocols developed. Our modern understanding of disease control? It started with Black Death's lessons. We didn't discover Yersinia pestis until 1894. Alexander Yersin found the bacterium. Finally, humanity could name its ancient enemy. Knowledge replaced terror. Today, plague still exists. Cases occur in Asia, Africa, even America. But antibiotics cure it. What killed millions now dies with a pill. Medicine conquered our nightmare. DNA extracted from plague victims' teeth confirmed the story. Same bacterium, same terror. Science gave voice to the voiceless dead. Their bones tell truths. Mass graves discovered in London's Crossrail construction in 2013 held 25 skeletons, all plague victims. The city literally built on bones, history beneath our feet. Climate change may have contributed. The medieval warm period ended. Harvests failed. Malnutrition weakened immune systems. Perfect conditions for death's arrival. Trade connected the world. The Silk Road brought silk, spices, ideas. It also brought plague. Globalization's dark side isn't new. It's ancient. The Black Death proved humanity's vulnerability. We built cities, empires, civilizations. And a bacterium invisible to the naked eye nearly ended us all. Survivors' resilience astounds. After burying everyone they loved, they rebuilt. They married, had children, chose life when death surrounded them. That's courage. Literature changed forever. The Canterbury Tales, the Decameron, both products of plague era. Art reflected trauma, death, but also life's preciousness. Beauty from ashes. Architecture changed. Windows grew larger in churches. Light replaced darkness. Literally and metaphorically. The world wanted brightness after so much shadow. Economic records show incredible detail. Grain prices, wage records, death tolls. Medieval accountants documented apocalypse with merchant precision. Numbers don't lie. Some villages never recovered. Abandoned medieval settlements. England. Empty churches. Crumbling walls. Silent witnesses to communities' plague erased completely. We study plague because it's not over. Pandemics happen. COVID proved that. Understanding medieval response helps us survive modern ones. History teaches survival. The Black Death reminds us we're not invincible. Our civilizations are fragile. Everything we build can fall, but we rebuild. Always. That's the human story. Medieval people faced the unthinkable with no science, no antibiotics, no real hope. Yet they persevered. Their strength echoes across centuries to us now. Every family alive today descends from plague survivors. Your ancestors endured this. Their DNA carries survival. You exist because they refused to surrender to death. Museums display plague artifacts, bone fragments, doctor masks, death records. Touch history, feel the weight. Remember the millions who suffered beyond comprehension. The Black Death wasn't just statistics. It was millions of individual tragedies. Each number was a person, with hopes, dreams, families, all silenced by plague. 1347 to 1353. 6 years that changed everything. 75 million dead, one bacterium. Infinite suffering. And somehow, against all odds, humanity survived. Remember them.